Well, let's go across the Pacific first thing this morning, and we'll go to Chile, where impeachment proceedings have begun against President Sebastián Piñera. The billionaire businessman turned politician is serving his second term as president. But just a month out from the general election, he's been caught up in the Panama Papers, a huge global leak of financial documents. The Chilean opposition is now launching impeachment proceedings after the papers revealed the controversial sale of a mining company to the president's close friend and business partner. Well, Boris van der Spek is editor-in-chief of Chile Today News, and he joins you now from Santiago. Boris, welcome to RN Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.
How serious is this issue for President Piñera? Is there a chance that this impeachment could go through?
Well, it's a very strong political signal to start with, of course. It's probably the most heavy thing an opposition can do against the president. The chances of him getting impeached are not very big because the opposition holds a majority in the House of Representatives. But in the Senate, the coalition of Piñera holds a majority. So I don't think the impeachment will pass at the end. But it's the second time this term only he gets impeached. First time was during the protests in 2019 for human rights violations. So he will go in the history books as the only president in Chilean history who's get impeached twice during one term.
How would you describe, can you paint a bit of a picture for us of Sebastián Piñera? What's he like?
Well, like you say, he's a billionaire who became president also on the promise of economic growth. He was his first term was a bit overshadowed by the heavy earthquake that Chile experienced in 2010. So his entire presidency was about building up the country again. His second administration started in 2018 and was basically overshadowed by another huge event, and those were the protests here. He sent out the army and the police were responsible for numerous human rights violations. And when finally these protests slowed down a bit, the pandemic kicked in. So you could say his presidencies, both his two terms, have not been very lucky. Within the presidency, within politics, he's been known as someone who likes to go his own direction. He doesn't listen very well to what his advisors tell him, and that makes up for these situations, like two impeachments, for example.
And Boris, the Pandora Papers, we've seen a lot of coverage of, and they've created a lot of news headlines around the world. What have they found specifically when it comes to the president of Chile?
So what happened here, the Dominga mining project, because that's what it's called, it was already controversial because the mining project would put in danger a lot of rare animals that inhabit a natural reserve nearby. The company that sold the mining project was owned by the children of President Piñera, and they sold him to a childhood friend of his. And through the Pandora Papers, it was discovered that a large part of the sale took place on the British Virgin Islands, thus avoiding taxes here in Chile. But the most controversial part of the sale was a clause in the contract, and that said that the third payment would only be made if the zone where the mine would be built would not be declared an environmentally protected area. And the decision to grant the area the status was in hands of the Piñera administration. At the end, he ended up not giving protection to the area, and the sale could proceed. So apart from the impeachment proceedings, there's also a criminal investigation opened against Piñera for bribery, tax crimes, and if found guilty, he could even end up for 5 years in jail. So it's mostly the clause that gave that condition on the environmental status of the area that was the decision of the Piñera administration at the end that made him get impeached right now.
Boris, what was the public reaction when all of this came out in the Pandora Papers?
Well, outcry, of course. The Dominga mining project is something a lot of people are protesting against because it's it's endangering a very special place of Chilean nature. But on the other side, it's something here in Chile, it has happened a lot that elites, especially the conservative right wing, has been caught up in a lot of corruption scandals lately. So at one side, there was public outrage. But on the other side, people here thought, this is not even new to us. They weren't surprised, to be honest. But of course, it did show that this president doesn't shy away from very shady offshore activities that even put in danger his own country, while presenting himself to the world as a climate defender and the forefront of sustainable energy. So it's quite shady. But here, the main reaction in the public was they were not even surprised.
Boris, this is all coming in the lead up to the first round of elections next month. So what are the president's chances looking like for success in that election, especially now?
Well, he's already ran for 2 terms, and in general, you can't run 2 consecutive terms here in Chile as president. So he won't compete in the elections, but he has a candidate, a favorable candidate. And he is suffering from these accusations because he's getting linked immediately with everything, all the wrongdoings from the president. So the right wing is getting quite some bashes over these Pandora paper leaks. So for him, Piñera, in general, these elections won't matter because he's gone. But for his candidates and for his sector, this is quite damaging.
Is there a sense that there's still more to come on this story?
Well, of course, everything that's going to... We'll see what's going to happen with the criminal investigation. That's going to be the most interesting part because, like I said, he could end up in jail. He is getting investigated for some serious crimes, tax crimes, bribery. And like I said, the impeachment procedure is just a very strong signal from the opposition. But I don't think he will get impeached. But I think the most interesting developments on this story will come from the criminal investigation.
Boris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's Boris van der Spek. He's the editor-in-chief of Chile Today News.